Hello. Um, so today we're gonna go over a game between Mikhail Tal and Vasily Smyslov. This game was played in 1959 at the candidates tournament. Mikhail Tal had the white pieces, and he started with e4. And it's kind of funny. Most people they always feared Tal, and I think the most common opening he's faced is probably the Carl Khan defense. It's very solid, and they want him to sacrifice on a rock part of it, like maybe e6 or something. So anyway, Smyslov plays c6, and Tal played d3. It's a popular choice. I mean, it's going for the King's Indian sort of way to face it. Fischer played this also often as well. Smyslov played d5, and the knight d2 is good, avoiding exchanging of queens after the exchange of pawns. Smyslov played e5. Now, Tal kind of thought this was a small inaccuracy because it allows him to open the position favorably. So, more flexible move could be g6 here. Anyway, back to the game. Oh, yeah, whoops. So anyway, whoops, I spoiled the favorite amazing move. So, yeah, knight to f3 was played. Smyslov played knight d7, a solid move. He's going to put his knight on his g knight, probably on f6 maybe. So if at any point there's an exchange on f6, you can recharge it with that d7 knight, or you can put the knight on b6. There's a lot of different ideas. But Tal, seeing the, I guess, unable way to exploit the opening of the position, played d4. This secures a advantage for white. And so after the move, Smyslov playing d takes on e4, knight takes on e4, and exchanging with e takes on d4, Tal could play queen takes on d4, because there's no way to win a tempo on that queen for the moment, and the knight is well placed on f3. Now, of course, you could go for the move, I think, what was it? Oh, f5. But you could argue this is overextending because of after knight g3, e4, and knight g5. Black has great development. There's a weak light square diagonal. There is no kicking this knight because of queen h5 checking. Yeah, I'd prefer white in this position. There's an edge in many variations. And that would be the aggressive choice if it wasn't Smyslov, maybe some aggressive player playing that side. So yeah, queen takes d4, and Tal was considering the favorite trick of queen e2, which is often seen in many of these variations. Bishop b4 check is probably the cleanest move as a response, but let's say there is the move knight to e7. There is always this mate trick, which is a good motivation for that move. So after what follows of c3, d takes on c3, d takes on c3, bishop back to e7, knight d6 check, king f8. It is not clear if white has enough compensation for the pawn because his queen is blocking the f1 bishop's path and stopping the development of his king side. So it's very unclear. I mean, Tal could play this position, and I guess there's some development issues for both sides in this variation. Returning, another idea could be bishop c4, and after knight b6, you could take on f7, play knight e5. Oops. Not king e7 blocking the bishop, but king to e8, and queen h5, g6. You can take on g6 and not go for the rook, but just go for the g-pawn, and this would be a draw. There's no good way to escape these checks like this. It's a forced draw if white wanted it, which is always good if you want a nice quick ending of a game. But back to the game. After queen takes d4, Smyslov played knight to f6. Tal pressurizing f6 with bishop g5. And Smyslov played bishop e7, a solid move. And after castlings for both sides, queenside and kingside, Tal plays this amazing knight d6, taking advantage of the slightly softened diagonal made by c6. It's often a good outpost white can use in the Caro-Kann, especially since the e6 pawn is gone. And that is also why you could claim that e5 move was an inaccuracy, because it allows a d6 to be an outpost. So, anyway, Smyslov played queen a5. Another tempting move is knight to d5, going for that exchange, which is often seen like in the Queen's Gambit or the Steinitz. But Tal could play the h4 move, or he can often like the Alekhine Gambit in the French. But anyway, after he can go for the maintaining tension with h4, or he can go for bishop takes on e7, queen takes on e7, knight takes c8, rook takes c8, and bishop c4. And here, and rook e1, so that you'd have a lead in development and the attack if he wanted to. But yeah, queen a5, and Tal plays bishop c4, exploiting again the absence of that e pawn, defending that diagonal. And you could try the safe king b1, bishop takes on d6, queen takes on d6, but knight e4 retrieves the bishop and just dissolves like the advantage that white has. So yeah, and now Smyslov plays a bit of a what's a lashing out? He plays b5. It's a double-edged move, but I mean, you can even argue that it could be even Tal playing this move. But anyway, another sensible idea could be knight to b6, and you can play bishop takes on s7, rook takes f7, knight takes on s7, king takes f7, rook to h1, knight b to d5, queen e5. And white has a dangerous attack here, and I think he's better in this position. The king is slightly hollow here. There's good compensation for the, exchange for a rook sort of thing. And now in this position, Tal, there's always the normal bishop to b3, which is solid. But you also want to play very moves that sort of clear the way for your pieces to enter, and you need to find a way to make progress. Tal, in his calculation, see, people think Tal wasn't very good calculator. You can assume they think he can just make intuitive sacrifices, but Tal was one of the incredible calculators also, and he's not. I think people don't give him enough credit for that, his calculation skills and making progress. And so Tal played bishop to d2, an important intermediate move. It frees g5 for the knight, and it also activates the queen in the long run. And so Smyslov played queen a6 here. Black decides to keep the counterattack against white's a2 square. If he tried queen a4, then what could follow is knight takes on c8, rook a takes on c8, bishop to b3, queen takes d4, knight takes on d4, and in this position, now it's sort of closer to the end game, and white could work on those weakened pawns that which moved forward, as well as its development lead in this position. Better piece placement. Smyslov, I think, could have gone for this maybe. Complicated problems could happen after queen c7, which is probably what most people would play, because after bishop takes on f7, rook takes on f7, knight takes on f7, king takes f7, knight g5 check, king g8, rook he1, knight f8, bishop f4, queen b7, and bishop d6. This is very difficult to play on black's position because there's a lot of pressure, and white has the center here, so it would be white who controls the pace of the game. But anyway, back to the game. Smyslov played queen h6 and Tao played knight to f5, and now Smyslov has to retreat this bishop here because, I mean, the bishop is key. That's his good bishop, because he has light square pawns. It's important. And so now if he picked bishop c5 attacking the queen, there could follow queen h4, b takes on c4, bishop c3, queen takes on a2, rook takes on d7, bishop takes on d7, knight h6 check, king h8, and queen takes f6. Very dangerous. And I mean, black has no time to win the rook because of the mate threat, and if takes the queen, then this is mate. So yeah, very dangerous position with this variation, which Tal did see in his calculations, I believe. Removing defenders and attacking and gaining key squares and looking at weaknesses. So back to the game. So Tao played queen h4, where he was going anyway, and Smyslov took the bishop. I mean, it's probably it is, I think, the best move. You got to have something. If you're down, you have to go for some advantage, and you can play for the material advantage and try to hold things together, or you can play for the attack advantage and give up pieces that have done their jobs, like that bishop. And now Tao plays queen g5, looking at that g7 square with mate. And if black was to play g6, then what would follow is knight h6 check, king to g7, bishop c3 on that weak diagonal, queen takes a2, rook he1. There is a grip on the position, and this is not pleasant to play as black. Even if you're a piece up, these pieces are dancing on top of each other. So if black played knight e8, there's probably the obvious, after knight e8, yeah, I guess you can just threaten mate, or I think yeah, you win this bishop, and it's just not good position now because white has the initiative and these weak pawns. So anyway, okay, Smyslov defends with knight h5, and he has the power to do this because of a g6 fork if needed. I don't think this would be good if white took this because of I think g6, I believe, the intuitive. Okay, knight f6 is fine. Let's see if g6 wins also, maybe. Okay, yeah, your king is airy too. Yeah, this is actually really good because that diagonal just works dividends in the position. you're probably getting mated at some point, maybe. And you have some nice threats here. So, yeah. Knight f6 would have to be played. And he can exchange some attackers and defend, which is not what Tal wants. He doesn't want him exchanging for some attackers and defending. He wants to attack and keep those pieces paralyzed. So knight h6 check is what Tal picked as the choice, instead of just regaining his equality or material. And king h8 is forced, and now Tal takes the knight. And Smyslov plays queen takes a2, threatening mate. And Smyslov thinks that he can probably wriggle out of this, maybe. And bishop c3 is forced, and it also keeps the material, like his knight, on h6. And Smyslov plays knight to f6, blocking that diagonal. And yeah, white is in no position to attack because he'd have to move the queen anyway and waste time. So I think this is the best move, attacking the queen. However, Tal has a genius follow-up in this position, banking on this weak bishop here, and the weakness of that king. He plays the amazing... also... Yeah, well, he plays queen takes f7. But also, going back to this position... Yeah, black could have... He wasn't aware of this sacrifice of the queen with queen takes on f7. So, he could have put up more resistance in avoiding that sacrifice with bishop to f6. Tal could play bishop c3. Exchange. Whoops. No. Bishop c3. And he has this intermediate move based on the lack of f6 bishop with knight to g5. Now g6. Knight h takes on f7. Rook takes f7. Knight takes f7. King g7. Queen f3 defending. Bishop f6. Knight d6. And black cannot complete his queenside development, and white retains the attack with this difficult variation in avoiding that what happened in the game. Another thing black could have tried is knight to f6. Queen... Oh, wait. Whoops. Nope. Queen to c5, attacking the rook. Knight to d7, defending the rook. And queen to d6, just infiltrating more. And there's nothing... I mean, there's so much pressure on the position. But anyway, in the real game, so Smyslov played queen takes a2, bishop c3, knight f6, and the queen sacrifice happens. And now Smyslov thinks he has things under control with queen a1 check, maybe. But, yeah, king d2, and this is all forced. Rook takes on 7, knight takes on s7, and, whoops, king to g8. You regain the queen. If you... I mean, you can do... I think you can try this, but you still have, I think, to deal with, let's analyze this. The rook gaining a tempo, and you can defend by moving, oh, actually, yeah, you just win the bishop with the knight, the fork. And so it wouldn't help even if he went for that. So he just decided to move, make him waste a tempo with that, and 95 followed. Knight takes e6 was played. 94 was played by Smyslov. Smyslov played bishop d6. And here, after bishop d4, Smyslov resigned because Tal is up the exchange. There's a weak c4 pawn. And the endgame is a guaranteed win, pretty much, by Tal winning. So, I hope you enjoyed the game. And we can go for one last look at the game. And so there. Important intermediate move. I think this deserves an exclamation point here. Attacking that bishop. Threatening mate. And yeah, if Smyslov went for that other queen takes d1, this bishop is dropping with the check. So I think this was a good game, and I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you very much.